went on down, what was it? Went on down to Route 9.
Yeah, the double A.
Yeah, and then come on.
Well, if you turned right and went 2 miles, you'd been there.
Maybe I'll find it next day.
We're gonna try to do our fall thing again.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get you there then. Yeah, if you'd have turned right and still left, it'd been about 2 miles. You would have been there.
Pray today. You don't care. Pray from the heart. Good. Okay. Good morning. Good to see everybody out. We're going to get started this morning. What a beautiful day it is to be in the house of the Lord. I know we all complain about the heat and the mugginess and all that, but still, it's a beautiful day. It's nice and cool in here. God's blessed us. We're going to get started. Just remember all the services today and all the people that can't be with us for whatever reason. We'll let the kids do our pledges and then we'll pray. Gavin, let's all stand. Do our pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the Christian flag and to the sacred holy kingdom stands, one Savior, crucified, risen, coming again, with might and liberty to all who believe.
I pledge allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word, a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I shall each word shall hide in my heart that I may not sin against God.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your love and grace. Thank you for everything. Thank you for bringing us here today. Let us have a great service, good time, and let everyone just come to you and do what you want them to do, dear Heavenly Father. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
morning. Feels kind of strange to be back up here. Been almost a month since I've taught a class. But this morning is going to be kind of a history lesson too. Last week's lesson, oh, happy 250 to everybody. Forgot about that. Last week's lesson was dealing with the last judge. Started out with Moses being the leader, Moses and Aaron, and then Joshua. They went through a period of time that they were ruled by judges. And the comment that seems to stick in my mind that was made about the time of the judges was that everybody did what they thought was right in their own eyes. And if not so, then the judges were brought in to make the judgment on it. Well, most of the judges were pretty good people. A couple of them did some things they probably shouldn't have. One by the name of Gideon was a good judge, good leader, and but he made the mistake of appointing his sons as judges under him, and they were terrible. And the last judge was a man by the name of Samuel. He was also a prophet and a good advisor also to the first king. What the people the last judge, Samuel, was getting older and made a similar mistake as Gideon did, and he had two sons, and he appointed them to be judges. And they were not very good judges at all. And the people began to complain to Samuel about the sons, and also telling Samuel, well, you're getting old, and we know you're not going to be around to keep an eye on your sons and try and keep them in line. And we don't want to be judged or ruled by them. And what we think we need is a king to rule us, not just a judge. Samuel took that as an affront to himself because he had considered himself a good judge, and he was a good judge, and he really felt bad. But he took it to the Lord, told the Lord what the people were murmuring and what they were complaining about and what they were saying about a king. And the Lord told Samuel, he said, don't you worry about it. It's not you that they're really wanting to get rid of. It is me. They don't want my rule anymore. They're turning against me. He said, so listen to them, listen to their complaints, but tell them what a judge or a king, not just a judge, but what the king will require of them if they have a king. Be sympathetic to them, but tell them and be frank with them. And Samuel did that. He told them everything that the king would do. I'll go back and read it. It comes from Samuel, 1 Samuel. Yeah, in chapter 8. And verse 10, it says, and Samuel told all the words of the Lord unto the people that asked of him a king. And he said, this will be the manner of the king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and some shall run before his chariots, be footmen. So he'll take your sons for his army. And he will appoint him captains over thousands, captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground, or to work the ground also, using them as labor, to reap his harvest, to make his instruments of war and instruments for his chariots. And he'll take your daughters to be confectionaries, to be cooks, and to be bakers. And he will take your fields and your vineyards and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. And he will take a tenth of your seed and of your vineyards and give to his officers and to his servants. And he will take your manservants and your maidservants and your goodliest young men and your asses and put them to his work. He will take a tenth of your sheep and shall be his servants. And you shall cry out in that day because of your king, which you shall have chosen, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. So when you get rid of the Lord and you tell him you don't want him anymore, he's not obligated to you in any way at all. So he's telling these people, this is what you can expect from the guy that you're wanting to be your ruler, to be your king. You know what? Evidently you're not satisfied with me. So Samuel is telling you now what you can expect. And it may take a while. You may be happy at first, but you're not going to be. And when you start crying out to me again, I'm not going to listen to you. So now today's lesson is taken from Jeremiah, still in the old book. And God told Samuel, if they want a king, we'll appoint him a king. So Samuel was the last judge. He was also a prophet. And God told Samuel who to go and anoint to be their king. And it was a man by the name of Saul. And Saul was a good warrior. He was an honest man and started out to be a good king. And you've probably heard the term that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's what happened. When Saul began to get more power, it began to corrupt him. He was beginning to feel the power. So, and the people were starting to complain some. But God's ears turned away. Not quite. They have not tasted of the Lord, the goodness of God. They don't really know what they're turning away from. Okay. But now someone that has been saved, that has felt the Spirit of the Lord, has enjoyed God's goodness, and they turn their back on the Lord. Now that's a different situation completely. God's not obligated to them anymore. He didn't turn his back on them, but they have turned their back and walked away from God. Just like the people here did. They were afraid of God, really. And they put Moses up. You be our go-between. We cannot stand to be in the presence of the Lord. So they were really terrified of him. So that may have been part of the aspect of being terrified of God. They knew the power that he had. There should be no fear there unless they've done something contrary to what he would have them do. So that was a good bit of it. They knew they weren't living as they should and made that. But Saul anointed Samuel. Samuel was the first, not Samuel. Samuel anointed Saul. Get it right. And Saul was the first king. Then Saul began to do stuff contrary to what God wanted, and God withdrew his presence from Saul and told Samuel again, the prophet, that I want you to go and anoint another king. And who he went to anoint was, he tells him to go to the man named Jesse, and Jesse has several sons, and it's going to be one of Jesse's sons that you'll anoint. So Saul goes to Jesse's house and begins to interview the sons, checking them out, and he goes through all of them. I think there were 6. And Samuel says, "Is this all that you have? The Lord hadn't told me to anoint anyone yet." He says, "Well, I have one that's a shepherd. He's in the field." He said, "Well, send and get him." So they brought David in, the youngest son of Jesse. And the Lord says, "That's the one." And it says he wasn't of great stature at that time, but still just a kid. But he says, "That's going to be the king." And Samuel anoints him to be king. Well, when Saul, first king, hears what has happened, he intends to kill David because of jealousy. And he didn't want the competition there. So he kept trying to kill David. God protected David. And David had opportunities to kill Saul, but he did not take advantage of it. He would not kill God's appointed, he said. And finally, when Saul did pass away, and David comes to the throne, and Samuel was an advisor to David, a good advisor there. So David more or less lived a terrible life, did a lot of things contrary to what God would have him to do. But God always described him as a man after his own heart. David would always come back to God and plead and repent of it. David had a son. David wanted to build God a temple for he would have a place to be with his people. And God said no. Didn't want him to do that because of things David had done, contrary to God wanted him to do. But he said, "Your son can build the temple." And his son's name was Solomon. Solomon was the second son by David's wife, and also adulteress. Forgot her name. Bathsheba, thank you. It came to me. So David had taken her as wife. David had had Bathsheba's husband killed in battle. And terrible, terrible things. But he always repented of it. Solomon did build the temple. David prepared everything for him, all the building stuff that he needed, and had it ready to go. And when Solomon took the throne, then he carried out David's wish and built the temple for God to be in. Well, Solomon was not quite as good as David. His problem, again, was David's problem was females. He had countless numbers of wives and concubines, which influenced him in a bad way. Because what he would do when he would take a wife, it would usually be as to seal a bargain with another country around them, and he would take a wife from that country, and they would bring their influence of their gods with them, and influence Saul a lot in bad ways. So not Saul, but Solomon, and after Solomon had a son by the name of Rehoboam. Now Rehoboam was the second son by Bathsheba. Okay, I think. Not sure. No. Okay, forget that part. Just erase that.
He was. The first one died.
Again?
The first son died.
Yeah, the first son died. Okay, that's right.
So he would have been the second.
Second son.
At least the second.
And he became king. But before he became king and before David had actually died, David had a man by the name of Jeroboam that David had appointed to some position. And he counseled David on certain things and had a certain amount of rule. But Jeroboam encountered a prophet by the name of Ahijah, and the prophet told Rehoboam that he would be king of 10 tribes. He said the prophet took off his cloak and tore it into 12 pieces. And he gave Rehoboam 10 pieces and said, you are going to be the ruler or the king over 10 tribes. And didn't say anything after that. And the other 2 tribes would have been Judah and Benjamin, and that would be Judea. So after Solomon heard that, he tried to have Rehoboam killed. Rehoboam went into Egypt and stayed until Solomon died. When Solomon died, Rehoboam took the throne. Jeroboam come back from Egypt, where he'd been in hiding. And Rehoboam tried to, what had happened was he was young when he took the throne, and he had some bad advisors that told him Solomon was rich. And the reason Solomon was rich, because he had put a heavy tax on the people, and had used them, a lot of it as free labor. So the people were getting really tired of Solomon really as a king. So Rehoboam was listening to some advisors, and one of the advisors, his advisors told him, why don't you show them just how strict you can be and place a higher tax on them, even higher than what your father Solomon had placed on them. And he did. Well, the people were complaining, and they got Jeroboam to come back from Egypt and plead their case, because he had been an advisor to Solomon, and he told Rehoboam, I can't keep them apart. But anyway, he tells the king, why don't you lighten up on these people a bit, reduce their taxes, treat them a little bit better, and they will follow you more heartily than what they did your father. But he took the counsel of the bad counsel. He kept the high taxes on them. So the 10 tribes rebelled against the king and separated into the northern 10 tribes, and that was Rehoboam, who did become their king. So now we've got 2 kings. One's Jeroboam was of the 10 tribes to the north. Rehoboam was of the 2 tribes to the south. So the bad thing was, the temple was still with the 2 tribes to the south. And Jeroboam of the north did not want his people going back and worshiping at the temple. So he made 2 temples in the northern 10 tribes. And the biggest mistake he made was he placed 2 golden calves in those temples and told the people, this is now your gods. This is what brought you out of Israel. Which was a bad mistake. He's already fallen away from God. And it seemed like every king, especially in the northern 10 tribes, they didn't really have a good king at all through the whole lineage of them. They all seemed to do bad things contrary to what God wanted. The southern 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, had lucked out and occasionally would have a good king. One of the good kings, and probably the last good king they had, was a king by the name of Josiah. His father Hezekiah was a good king, and he followed in his father's footsteps, but not completely. They just never would follow God completely like he wanted them to do. And Hezekiah had wiped out a lot of the Baal worshipers, and when Josiah came to the throne, he did like so. And he also started to repairing the temple. And in the process of repairing the temple, they discovered the Old Testament, or the Pentateuch again, God's laws. And Josiah really come down then and followed God's law even more so, and destroyed more of Baal's altars and stuff. So now we get to where we are with Jeremiah, where Jeremiah comes onto the scene. When Josiah was king, the Lord called Jeremiah to be a prophet. And let me read just a bit here. It says, Jeremiah's prophetic ministry began in the 13th year of Josiah's reign. And Josiah had 4 kings after him who were all bad. And the first one would have been Josiah, son of Jehoahaz. The second one after that was Jehoiakim, and then Jehoiachin, and the very last king of Israel was Zedekiah, and he wasn't even a Jew. What had happened when Jehoiachin was king, Babylon invaded the top 10 tribes had been in slavery several years before Judea fell. And that's where the lesson deals with that today. But anyway, the bottom 2 tribes, Benjamin and Judea, or the last king of those was Jehoiachin, the last Jewish king. They were invaded by Babylon. A lot of them were carried into slavery, the bondage. And Nebuchadnezzar took his uncle and put him on the throne in Judea as king, and changed his name from the Babylonian name to the Jewish name Zedekiah. So Zedekiah was really the uncle of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. And the funny thing is, after just a short period of time, he rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar come back, invaded Babylon again, and carried more slaves away, destroyed the temple, destroyed Jerusalem completely, and had all of Zedekiah's sons, which would have been his nephew or cousins, killed in front of Zedekiah, and then put Zedekiah's eyes out and blinded him and took him back to Babylon in chains. So the last king was a terrible king and wasn't even a Jew to begin with. So all this leading up to, now Jeremiah prophesied, said he became a prophet in the 13th year of Josiah. And Josiah was a good king and followed what God wanted him to do. So when Jeremiah first became a prophet, for about 18 years or so, he had a good life. And then things began to change when Josiah passed away, and then his downline began to take the throne, because it was just terrible from there on out. And when Jeremiah begins to prophesy to him, it was good in the beginning. But as things changed and the Lord told him what to prophesy to Judea, the southern 2 tribes, as well as to the 10 tribes in the north, and that's where the lesson actually begins today, in chapter 3 in Jeremiah, verse 11. And it says, And the Lord said unto me, unto Jeremiah, The backsliding Israel hath justified herself more than the treacherous Judea. Now at this time, right at this particular time, the northern 10 tribes had already been overrun by the Assyrians. They were taken, most of the nation had been taken in as slaves into the northern country, into Syria or Assyria. So that's what it's saying here. It says, the backsliding Israel had justified herself. They know, Israel knew why they were suffering what they'd done, or why they were suffering as they were. They'd been taken as slaves. Still, Judea still existed as a country. And at that time, they had not been overrun or taken as slaves. So it says here, Israel hath justified herself more than the treacherous Judea. So Judea was still, Josiah had died, and now the bad kings had taken thrones, and downline, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And they were doing everything contrary to God. They were worshiping Baal. They were making human sacrifices of the children, and it was just terrible. In verse 12, and it said, God tells Jeremiah, he says, go and proclaim these words toward the north, or to the northern 10 tribes, and say, return thou backsliding Israel, or the northern 10 tribes, saith the Lord, and I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you. For I am merciful, saith the Lord, and I will not keep anger forever. Even though you've done what you've done, I'm not going to be angry at you forever and treat you as such. So what he wants him to do, he says, return thou backsliding Israel, and I will cause mine anger to fall, and will not cause my anger to fall upon you. You can come back, and things will be okay between us again. Verse 13, this is what God wants them to do. He says, only acknowledge thine iniquity. Admit what you have done, how you've treated me as your God. That thou hast transgressed against the Lord thy God, and hast scattered thy ways to the strangers under every green tree, and you have not obeyed my voice, saith the Lord. You have gone after other gods. That's what it's referring to there when it says, and hath scattered thy ways to strangers under every green tree. They worshiped Baal under groves, under the trees, in the shade. And they would build altars in the groves like that. And so that's what it's referring to when it says that thy ways have taken to strangers, to other gods, is what it's referring to. And you have not obeyed my voice, said the Lord. In verse 14, it says, turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion. What it's referring to there, it says, turn, O you backsliding children, says the Lord, I am married unto you. What it's referring to is the original covenant that he had made with Abram years before. He had taken this nation to be his bride. I am married to you, so it's the nation he's referring to. And he's talking to them just like they have departed from him. They've gone off and left him as a husband. They've treated him terrible and left him and gone off with someone else. Other gods. But turn, O backsliding children, turn around and come back. And it says, I will take you one of a city, even if it's just one that comes out of a city. And two of a family, I will bring you to Zion, even if it's just two out of a family. I will still honor what I have said. I will treat you good again. Verse 15. And I will give you pastors according to mine heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. I will give you someone to watch over you that is of a good heart, like what I'm trying to tell, that I will treat you. They will treat you good because of me. I want you to understand. They will teach you in the ways that you haven't been taught because of these other kings that have treated you terrible and have caused you to drift away. And I will give you pastors according to my heart, to seek after my will, and they will teach you my will. And I will take you one of a city, if it's just one or two, whatever it may be, I will welcome you back in. Verse 16. And it shall come to pass when you be multiplied and increased in the land in those days, saith the Lord, they shall say no more, the ark of the covenant of the Lord. Neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall they that be done anymore. Now that's really saying something, because they looked at the Ark of the Covenant as being God's presence with them. And if they went into battle and things were going bad, they'd say, bring out the Ark of the Covenant to the battle. And if they did, then they would usually win. And now he's saying here, and it shall come to pass when you be multiplied and increased in the land, if you just come back and over time, as you increase again, and as you multiply, and as I treat you and teach you the way that you should have been taught in the past, but you haven't been, this is what will happen. In those days, saith the Lord, they shall say no more the ark of the covenant of the Lord. You won't have a need for the ark of the covenant anymore. That's almost been like today. We don't have a need for the ark of the covenant anymore. Why? Because we are the temple. We carry the presence of the Lord with us, within us. When our spirit identifies with the Spirit of the Lord, that's what it's saying. As time passes, you will not have a need for the ark to be with you, because I will be with you. I will be in your presence within you. Neither shall it come to mind. You won't even think about the Ark of the Covenant. How many of you actually think about the presence of the Ark of the Covenant being with you? You know, you feel God's presence with you. When you go to prayer, you feel God's presence. You commune with God. Neither shall they remember it. Neither shall they visit it. Neither shall that be done anymore. Don't have a need for it anymore. So now for him to be telling Jeremiah to tell this to the Jews, really big change for them. Verse 17. At that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord, and all the nations shall be gathered unto it, to the name of the Lord, to Jerusalem. Neither shall they walk any more after the imagination of their evil heart. For me, for some reason, I take this and it's looking way into the future, not just to this time in history here with the Jews, but what he's saying is pretty much is what we are today. When he said, we don't need the Ark of the Covenant, you're not going to need the Ark of the Covenant. That's what we are today. We do not need the presence of the Ark with us to feel the presence of God like they wanted at that time. We can feel the presence of the Lord without the Ark. And at that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of the Lord, and all the nations shall be gathered unto it, to the name of the Lord, to Jerusalem. Neither shall they walk any more after the imagination of their evil heart. To me, that's almost referring to Revelation when it says that Jesus will come back and rule the earth, and what's it called? He will rule it from Jerusalem, and it will be the throne of the Lord, referred to as the throne of the Lord. So this is, to me, is looking way, way ahead in time, that the people probably can't really understand what Jeremiah is trying to tell them, and Jeremiah may have not really understood it. But to me, he is looking so far ahead in the future as to what God has got planned for his people, and is trying to tell them if they will just do what? Only acknowledge thine iniquity, that thou hast transgressed against thy God, and hast scattered thy wives to strangers under every green tree. What's God ask of us today? Repent. Admit your transgressions. Be honest with yourself, and then be honest with God about it. Admit to him what you have done against his will, tell him that, you know, we don't think of stuff that we do as actually, we may think we're sinning and breaking God's laws or rules, but we don't think about it as being and worshiping strange gods like they were at that time. But when we depart from God's direction, no matter what it may be, we can make it a God to us, that if it's separating us between us and God, then we're making a God out of it. So he still expects the same thing of us today as he expected of the northern 10 tribes and the southern 2 tribes there. And that is to return to him. Repent, own up what you've done, confess it sorrowfully with a broken spirit and a contrite heart, and he will accept you back. And that's what he's telling the Jews right there. Just do it. If it's just one, if it's just 2, if it's the whole nation, hopefully, but come back to me. Verse 18, it says, in those days the house of Jerusalem shall walk with the house of Israel. What is it right now? Israel, founded in 1948. The northern 10 tribes and the southern 2 tribes are together again. In those days the house of Judea, the southern 2 tribes, shall walk with the house of Israel, the northern 10 tribes, and they shall come together out of the land of the north, where they were captive, to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers, and all the other lands that around that the Jews had migrated into all over the world, and bring it again. To me, that's looking so far ahead to right now that Israel is back. The tribes are all back together, and there's still people, Jews from all over the world, are still migrating back to Israel. Verse 19. But I said, how shall I put thee among the children, and give thee a pleasant land, a godly heritage of the hosts of nations? And I said, thou shalt call me my father, and shalt not turn away from me. Why are you going to do this, Lord? Why would you be doing that for us? Since what we've done, how we've turned away. And he says, thou shalt call me my Father, our Father which art in heaven, and shall not turn away from me. The Lord did not, I don't think the Lord enjoyed having his people be taken as slaves. I don't think he enjoys seeing us today as becoming a slave into sin. And what does he say? He says, but how shall I put thee among the children and give thee a pleasant land and a godly heritage of the hosts of nations? Why would I do this for you? Why does he do it for us today? Because he does not want to see us in sin, the results of sin, living in sin, and also what is the end of sin. It's death and hell. He doesn't want that for any of his children. And he said, what do you expect? He said, you call me my Father, and shall not turn away from me. So that's what God wants us to do today. Address him as our Father and not turn away from him. You know, as a parent, if you've dealt with children, there's been times that you've had to dish out correction or punishment to let that child know there's boundaries that they've overstepped. And in doing that, there's consequences with it. You love them. That correction is done out of love because you don't want them going out into the world and doing things contrary to what the world would allow them to do, because the consequences are going to be a lot